Well, we're ready to go, Harry, and all you have to do is answer the questions.
Okay, all right. Can I answer questions?
Okay. When were you born?
I was born on January the 30th, 1880.
And that makes you how old?
92.
92 years old?
Last January.
Right. Where were you born?
I was born on a farm near Westport in a log house.
Who were your parents? What was your father and your mother's maiden name?
My father was Peter, and my mother's name was Nancy Jane Luce Osthimer.
Can you give me some of the early recollections and remembrances of life in this log cabin on the farm as a young man or a boy?
Well, there was 3 of us boys at home at the time I can remember. And we slept upstairs in a loft. And the roof was what they called a clapboard shingles. And the snow had come in the wintertime, and you'd have to sweep the snow off the floor and off your bed and things to get down to the fireplace so you could have some heat. That's the story of that end of it. And then after I got old enough to go to school, my first year in school, I wore a dress and had long curls. And my school first teacher, her name was Miss Bundy. I forget what her first name was.
And what town was this, or school district?
It was the old Beach Grove School in the country school. And of course, after that we moved to another place, and there's a picture of my father and my sister, and then that's 3 boys that are left.
What did your father do for a living?
He was always a farmer until the last few years. After we went, and my brother-in-law and him bought a meat market in Westport.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we lived. We moved from the farm to this town of Westport. Of course, that was after my mother died.
Mm-hmm.
And they run that meat market till I went away to the war.
Going back, do you remember your grandparents on either your mother's side or your father's side?
I never saw my grandparents on my father's side. They came to this country from Germany and located down around Cincinnati. And they died there during a cholera epidemic. I don't know the year or anything of that kind. And my mother, her father died, and then she remarried a man by the name of Updike, and he was always grandpa to me, and I knew them until they both passed away.
Did Grandma and Grandpa on your mother's side, did they ever tell you any stories of their early life? Or?
No, never did. I was too young, I guess, to remember that. I know my granddad used to walk with a cane, and when we lived in that log cabin house, we'd walk down to Westport. And I was barefooted, of course, in summertime. He'd crack me on the shin with that cane, and that'd just tickle the life out of me. He'd just laugh like a fool, and it didn't feel good either.
What was life like in the log cabin? How did your mother cook, and what did you eat principally?
Oh, we always had plenty to eat. I can remember that, but she had just a range in the kitchen, and but it was a wood burner outfit, you know, and no gas or anything like that in them days.
Mm-hmm.
Coal oil lamps, and she'd, I don't know. We had the immersion milk a lot of times for supper, and they'd have bacon and eggs for breakfast, and potatoes and cabbage and kraut and would make kraut with a barrel. And when the summertime came along, and sorghum, they'd grow sorghum, and then they'd have a barrel of sorghum molasses to go with all the rest of the stuff. You taking this all down on that thing?
Sure. I'm getting it all right there.
Oh, Lord, that'll be a mess for somebody to...
What was your means of transportation when you wanted to go someplace?
Horseback or horse and wagon.
Did you?
We had a spring wagon. So I think there's 3 seats in it, if I remember correctly.
Did your parents have horses other than the ones that they used on the wagon for the children to take someplace, or?
No, they also used just the ones we had there on the farm.
He had work horses also?
Work horses, yes. And of course we had cows and stock and hogs and things like that. Chickens. I remember one time there was a friend of ours lived over about a mile from where we lived. And they had 2 boys, and I used to go down there and play with them. And there's a spring that they got their water from. And I thought that was the best water I ever tasted. And I got sick one time, and I wanted to drink water. They got me some water, and it don't taste good. I wanted to drink water from the Stevens spring. Oh, that was too far to go down there and get that. This is all right. That's to get out of our well. No, I wanted some water from the Stevens spring. So there's a sister to my husband's, of my wife's husband, visiting, and she says, I'll go down there and get him a jug of that spring water. So she'd gone an hour or so and come in with a jug of water, and I found afterward that it was just the water they pumped out of the well.
Not your wife.
Oh,
Your sister's husband?
Yeah.
Okay. Going to school, was this a one-room school?
one room. There's everything from the chart class to the 8th grade. We did have 1 or 2 students that went to 9th and 10th grades, but that's all I had there. And if you wanted to get a high school education, you had to go to where the Franklin College is now. They called it the Franklin Normal School at that time. That's where you got your high school education over there.
How long did you stay in this one-room schoolhouse? Did you finish there?
No, when we moved to Westport, I think I left there. It was around the 4th or 5th grade when we moved to Westport. Mm-hmm. And I finished the 8th grade there at Westport. I never had anything higher than that.
Did you, at Westport, did you also go to a one-room schoolhouse?
No, they had, they had 2 rooms, and a brick building with a lower floor that had, I think it was 6th and 5th and 6th grade in the lower floor, and then 7th and 8th upstairs. Mm-hmm. And then they had another little building out the back that was a frame building where they had classes under the 5th grade.
We're finishing school now. Has anything happened in your life that has been of interest up until the time you finished school? Your mother had died in this time?
Yes, she died, and 1 brother died.
From what reason?
Well, they had an epidemic, I guess you'd call it an epidemic, but I had 2 brothers down with typhoid fever at the same time, and one of those brothers died. Mm-hmm. And my sister's husband, they lost the father and mother and 1 son and a daughter, all from this typhoid fever.
Yeah.
in that all around that neighborhood, you know.
Did your mother have the typhoid fever?
No, she had something. Well, I don't know what they did say it was. It's a lung condition, you know.
Like tuberculosis or consumption? Or?
Yeah, consumption.
Yeah,
They said that's what it was, but I don't think. She just showed up after she got this, after the spring came, after these people got well, and she had done a big washing. And it hung down on the line, and the sleet come while I was out there, and she took that down to dry it from the house, and she got a terrible cold, and she never recovered. And that,
How old were you then when your mother died?
around 10, I think it was.
Did your father remarry?
No, sir.
Yeah, never remarried. Yeah.
No.
How was it growing up in a home there with just a sister and two brothers?
Well, these older brothers, they was working away from home. You know, they didn't stay there. They'd all call it home. They'd come there, maybe stay 2 or 3 days at a time. And I lived with my sister, and it was she was just almost like a mother to me. You know, she took care of me, and just everything was just like a home. One of them done that all from the signal. They had signals, you know, and to show you how to, whether to go up or down or hold. Or,
Where was this quarry?
it was near Westport. It was about a mile and a half. And you had to walk out there to go to work.
How much did they pay you a day?
Well, I got 50 cents working in this here when they run these hoists. Then next summer, I got 75 cents a day working on a pike. They're building these pike roads, you call them. Now they just built out of stone, crushed stone. And I, from the experience in this time that I was running these hoists, times I'd go and help the blacksmith, you know. He was just down in the same building, but down, wasn't up on the platform like I was. I'd hold his irons and maybe do things like that. And I got the idea of how to sharpen the drills, the hand drills they used to drill a hole in the rocks, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when there's this quarry where they got an old quarry and they're using up the old rock, they had a crusher in there, and some of the rocks were too big that they couldn't get him in there, and they was trying to blast them with dynamite to bust them up. And I says to this foreman there, I says, why don't you drill some holes in there and put the dynamite in those holes? Says, that's the way they used to do down at the quarry there where I worked. I says, how do you do it? Where you get it drilled? I says, there's a blacksmith shop right there. And I says, there's some of them old drills in there. I saw them. I said, who the hell are you going to get to sharpen them? Well, I said, I can sharpen them. So he put me in the blacksmith shop, and I sharpened those drills and went to show him how to drill, to make the holes in these rocks, and then put the dynamite in there and bust them up, and he was tickled pink over that.
Is this pike you talk about? It's a road.
Yeah.
What towns was it running
Well,
through?
it run from south of Westport clear into Greensburg.
I presume that's still the road today.
Well, that's Highway 3 now,
Yeah.
but of course it's all excuse me, paved and well, that's
Here. Windbag.
well.
We're just getting started here. I've run them out of here already.
Heavens. Well, he doesn't have to talk like that when you chase him. Slow down. Is that enough?
Yeah, I think so.
What happened after you finished on this road job?
Well, I think that's that the summer. That's when the Spanish War started. In the what was it, in April of 1898. My oldest brother and I, we was going to enlist in a company from Greensburg. We was trying to get the company, and they come there to Westport looking for volunteers. My oldest brother, Charlie, and I, we decided we'd go. And they had this meeting in the hotel, run by an old lady, and her name was Ross. And when this man says to me, he says, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 18. "No, you're not, Harry Osthimer." Says, "You're the same age as my birdie," and he's not 18 yet.
How old were you?
I was, around 17, I guess.
17.
And she said, "No, you're not, Harry Osthimer. You're the same age as my birdie. Now, you taking this all down?" Oh, Lord.
Well, what happened then? When did they allow you to enlist?
No, they didn't let us go, and my brother wouldn't go then because I couldn't go. So I went that fall, and the trouble started over there in the Philippines. And they wanted people for that. So I went to Indianapolis and enlisted in the regular army. And I had to get 18. I had to get a permit from my dad, to go. And he signed the paper for me. And he says, "Well," says, "if that's what you want to do," says, "I'll sign them to get you in there. But says, I'm never gonna. Don't come to me to sign one to get you out." Now, okay. So that's the way it started.
So you enlisted at the in the regular army?
Regular army. And sent from Indianapolis to St. Augustine, Florida, and they told us that we're recruiting that battery down there to send to the islands. And it says, "You fellows," there's 5 of us enlisted in different parts. There's one other boy from Westport and the others around different places. And they told us when we left there that when we got to St. Augustine, if the outfit had left for Frisco or someplace out there, says, "You get to go to headquarters there and tell them who you are and show them your papers, and they'll send you on to Frisco." But when we got there, they told us that this outfit had been held there, and we were going to take the captain and make him a colonel out of one of the volunteer regiments. And so we were stuck there. We took our captain, the old Captain Murray, I believe his name was. Took him and a first lieutenant of the name of Smith. And they took them and made this Smith a captain and Murray a colonel of this one of these regiments. I forget the number then, though.
Which company or which battery and were you assigned to?
A battery of the 1st Heavy Artillery, the Coast Artillery.
How about training? Didn't they train you before you left Indianapolis?
Yes.
Where did you train?
Didn't train in Indianapolis, no. They sent us right down there. And we got recruits, and they had sergeants drilled us and learned us the manual of arms and all that kind of stuff, And then they learned us the light artillery. That's what they intended to do, But they still trained us in the use of the light artillery.
Where were you stationed in St. Augustine?
Well, our barracks was an old monastery building. There was one great big room, and the officers used that. And then there was quarters there, and a big mess hall, and some extra buildings around. And that's where we trained and slept and ate. There was a guardhouse there, and then old Fort Marion there in St. Augustine. We had there was 124 general prisoners in that old fort.
Fort Marion?
Fort Marion. You've heard of that old Fort Marion there in St. Augustine.
Well, I was looking at the map today, and I see that's Matanzas. Would that be the Would that be the old Spanish fort there?
That
on
was
the
on
course?
an island across the bay from St. Augustine.
Matanzas was
Yeah,
it?
it's down. I never was there, but it's not in use anymore. But St. Augustine, the Spaniards built it when they settled
You're speaking of Fort Marion.
Fort Marion.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's right in town.
right
almost.
in town.
Right,
Yes,
right. It's still there, I'm
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
yes, it's still there. I know one of my boys was down there for once. I told him about well, that's St. Augustine. I told him about I cut my initials up in this lookout tower, you know, just HHO. He went down there and he said that it was boarded up, and he said I couldn't see no initials up in there. He said I looked over all of them and I couldn't find it. But I think that's the reason, because he couldn't get up in there.
On this Fort Marion, what did you do there at Fort Marion?
Well, we guarded those prisoners. There'd be every day they would change the guard, you know, from the barracks, and they'd march down this street to the old fort and they'd go in there and relieve the ones on the post there. They had, I forget now how many men they were. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 posts. That'd be eight men beside the sergeant and the corporal.
How many prisoners were you guarding?
Well, they were all there in that building, you know.
How many? Were these Cuban prisoners?
No, they were American soldiers.
American soldiers?
That had, well, some for desertion, and had a bunch of them in there for stealing, and there's one colored guy in there for murder. And they had a bunch of mutineers that mutinied someplace.
This was Army stockade or prison?
It was an army prison.
Yeah.
You know.
These were long-term or short-term?
Well, both. There was some in there. That colored guy was in for life. And then there was another one in for 20 years for... He had been some kind of a quartermaster sergeant. That's what they handled the government clothes and things like that. And he had sold a lot of that stuff, you know, and they caught him in blankets. And he got 20 years out of that trip.
How much did the Army pay you as a private back in the
The
day?
whole sum of $15.60 a month. And then they took out a quarter every other month to pay our way into the old soldiers' home. When we got old, we wanted to go home.
How long did you stay down at Fort Marion at St. Augustine?
Well, I think we stayed there all that winter, the winter of 98, and all next summer, and then the next fall, they were still going to decide to send us to the Philippines. And they loaded their stuff on the car, and then they countermanded that order, and they sent us to Egmont Key, Fort Dade, Florida. That was just the new fort being put up out there on that island in the channel. Set right in the middle of the two channels to come into Tampa. And we went down there, and there was nothing there on the building they'd put up. And we mounted 4 8-inch disappearing rifles on one end of the island, and on 4 rapid-fire 6-inch batteries at the south end of the island. And then had another big, what they call a howitzer battery along on the side that didn't have much of a fort there, just for pretty close range, you know. And then across the channel on Mullet Key, they built a mortar battery. There's 4 mortars in there. They were just to throw these mortar shells, you know. And they were close range. Just about it'd carry about a mile, I suppose, something like that.
By this time, our difficulties with Cuba and Spain had
Oh yes,
ended.
Spain and our country had made their settlement. But the trouble over there in the islands still, and they still was kind of worried, I think, about might be some more trouble someplace. But that is the reason for to protect the city of Tampa and St. Petersburg. And they had these forts put up.
Did you have any precautions against malaria?
None that I know of. They didn't say anything about it. We were all vaccinated 2 or 3 times for the smallpox or whatever you call it. And I must say, as soon as I got out, I got some fellow to give me a shoot back, and I'd slap it on there to kill that. I've seen fellows who need to lose their arm from them darn things.
From smallpox?
No, from the vaccine.
From the vaccination?
Yeah.
And you'd take a chew of tobacco and stick it on
Slap it on there to kill that stuff. And mine never took very hard. It just left a little scar.
Did you think Florida would be the tourist haven
No.
70 years later that it was then?
No, I got acquainted with there's what they call the pilot's crew stationed on that island. They would meet these ships, send out a pilot, and he'd pilot these ships into the town of Tampa. And I got acquainted with this old man, and then I finally got acquainted with his daughter. And we got visited quite often. Every time I'd go on a leave of absence for a couple of days, I'd stop over there and see the family, and got acquainted with that family there, and had a real nice visit. And he thought, well, I guess the old man thought it was getting serious. And he insisted I buy some land there in St. Petersburg. He says, that's going to outdo Tampa, so is the world. And I got about 50-foot lots right in the main stem of town between the docks and there was 4 or 5 blocks vacant in there. I could buy them for 25 cents a lot. For $25 a lot. I'm getting down too cheap. And he just begged me to buy some of them. I said, I don't want that land there. When I get out of the Army, I'm leaving this part of the country. That island down there where we was stationed, it was nothing but palmetto trees and swamps and mosquitoes. My God, I never saw anything like it. The biggest elephants almost. It felt like it. They couldn't keep a horse on the island, or the short-haired dogs. We got some of them to bring over there, and the lousy mosquitoes just kill them.
Did you have mosquito nets or anything on your beds? Or
Beds all had, we had cots, you know, and then at the foot they had a rod run up with a T, and the same way at the top, and then they had nets built to fit down to the floor over them things. And I've had my knees and elbows where I'd be asleep and would get up against that thing, or they'd just be like a piece of beefsteak almost.
In some of the older enlisted men, the sergeants and so forth, and then some of the officers, were any of the officers veterans of the Indian Wars or Civil War?
No. There was, I think there was one sergeant. Maybe they'd been in the Indian territory, in the Indian country out there during his early. He had been in, I think, 20-some years when he come to this outfit.
Anything else you remember about Florida and your military experience there? outstanding or otherwise?
Yes, another thing I remember, that this island was, as I said, is a mile and a half long and about 3/4 of a mile wide. And if you can remember, I don't know what the dates are, but Galveston had a terrible flood down there. You've heard of it, I suppose. Well, of course, that raised the water in our outfit, and when we had to go from the quarters to the dining room, we waded the water pretty near deep. Yeah, and they didn't know what was coming. Everybody was about half scared, you know, and they got word that this terrible cyclone or tidal wave or whatever they call them was coming in. And they thought maybe it might come there, and it did. It just washed us all the way.
How did you get back and forth on the island from the mainland?
Well, they'd run a boat out there twice to 3 times a week and brought our mail and the supplies and stuff, like our meats and, well, everything we ate they had to be brought in from the mainland.
Where did your next tour of duty take you in the island?
That was the end of it.
That was the end right there?
Yeah, I finished my duty right there on that island.
We looked at, you and I were looking at some papers the other day, but you were in South Carolina at one time also, weren't you?
No, that was the regimental headquarters in Sullivan's Island.
Was it South Carolina?
Yeah.
And that's the reason that your paper's promoting you?
Yeah, that has come through that general headquarters, of the regimental headquarters, you call it.
Well, your 3 years were up and you didn't feel like re-enlisting.
At the time, I wanted to get out of there so quick. As I was telling you about those mosquitoes, the morning we'd get up there and when it was the summer months when the mosquitoes were bad, you could reach up in the corner of them squad rooms and you could get them with a handful like that. They just like bees swarmed up in there. You know? And all the drinking water we had was what they had top of the ground. Well, they called them cisterns, but they were just like one of these here big old silos they had around the farms, you know. The great big wooden tubs, I suppose, is 10 feet across and 10 or 15 feet high, and they cut the water off the roof of the buildings, and that's the water we had to drink.
That's what you drank?
That's the water we had to drink.
Harry, what was that date again, the date that you were discharged?
November the 17th, 1901.
Did that make a full 3 years?
Full 3 years. Yeah, I enlisted on the 18th, you know, and then they let you get out a day earlier.
Yeah.
So good to you.
Yeah. Well, what turn did your career take then?
Well, I went back home there to Westport and stayed with my sister and brother-in-law that winter, and I helped them cut the ice and store it to keep the meats cold. Had to cut your ice off. They had a big pond there, and they'd cut the ice off that one and get about 6-8 inches thick. Store that in this big outbuilding. And that's, then I think it was on Valentine's Day, I was called in Indianapolis to go to work in the state hospital, at mental hospital is what it was. And I worked there for, I don't know, till the next spring. Then I had a cousin that run an electrical store there in Indianapolis, and he got me a job with an electrical factory there in Indianapolis. And I worked there till I got kind of tired of that. And well, I come along one day and worked with me at the Central Hospital, and he says, "Come on, let's go to Westport." He says, "I've got a job up there, and we'll get you." So I just packed my turkey and took off to Westport. And while working there, I met Gracie Farmer, which happened to be my wife,
Gracie Farmer.
Grace.
How old were you then, Harry?
43, obviously.
23.
23.
Yeah.
And she was from Logansport?
Yeah.
How did you meet her?
She worked there at the hospital.
At Logansport?
Yeah.
He was.
Is that a fine-looking gal?
She's a lovely looking woman. Yes. That was the wedding picture?
No.
No, that is. She gave me that picture at Christmas before we were married in May.
I'll be darned.
I framed it. Framed
Oh,
her all too.
That's real nice. That's a beautiful frame and all. Well, here you are. You're a married man. You're 23 years old. And where do you go?
Went to work on the Pennsylvania Railroad
At Logansport.
at Logansport, switching.
Switching.
Stayed there till 1911. Went out there and stayed at Logansport till 1906, and I quit there. It wasn't wages on the railroad them days. Wasn't very much.
What would it be?
Well, I think we got. It was less than $3 a day. I can't tell you the exact figures. $2 and something a day for work for 12 hours. And we had I was acquainted with I worked with a fellow there. He had a brother working out in Kansas on the Missouri Pacific. And they were switchmen out there were getting 45 cents an hour. And the brakemen on the road were about made something similar to that. I forget what it was now. It's been too long. So I quit there and we took off and went out to Kansas and hired us right on the spot. And I went to work on the braking. I wanted yard work. And I worked there, well, let's see, there was a panic come on along about that time, 96, 7, when Teddy Roosevelt paid the pen when they had that silver, they got short of silver or something, and they had a money panic. And we'd get our pay in a check. Take that up the bank or someplace, and they'd give you $3 or $4 and a due bill for the rest of it. And them due bills were good to pay your rent or your grocery bill. And meat markets, they'd take it just like money. So my wife was never satisfied out there. I had one child. When we left Logansport, I had a boy, Joseph. He was born I was married in May '03, and in 1904, in March.
February 27th.
Yeah, February.
That was your first child.
Yeah.
And you took him to Kansas with
Took
you?
him to Kansas, and then we got the next one out there.
And Florence was born in what town in Kansas?
Hoisington, Kansas.
Washington, Kansas.
Hoisington.
Hoisington. Hoisington.
And that was in 1907. And then in 1909, I had a pair of twin boys, Charlie and Clinton.
Where were you working then, and where were you?
On the Missouri Pacific.
You were still on the Missouri Pacific? Yeah. And still living in this town in Kansas?
Down in Kansas.
All right.
No wonder Mom never turned off.
No.
No wonder Mom didn't like it. It was real windy and sandy, and Dad tells a story about some drunk, and he said there's a wind blow this way every day, and this drunk said, hell no, it blows this way one day and comes back the other way the next. And Mom would stand and hold her sheets on the line to keep them blown away.
A wash tub would be running down across the alley.
Yeah, I've got an old copper boiler in there, and the lid's gone, and it blew away when it was out there.
Well, you kept working on the railroad, and
then I come back. Grace got disgusted out there, and I wasn't too happy. So we come back, and I was visiting my sister there in Westport. And she had a daughter who was a married to a conductor on that Big Four, and they stopped there one day and wondered what I was going to do. I said, well, I'm looking for a job. He said, would you like to go to work on the Big Four here? Well, I suppose so. I don't know. What's it like? Well, he said, it's a good job. So he said, you want to go to work? He says, we'll go up to the depot and I'll send a message up there. And send a message to the train master up there and said he had a railroad man there, switchman, brakeman. Says, send him to Wabash on the next train. So there's how I got to work on the Big Four, and I worked there for the fall of the year, and then it was the rottenest thing I ever had. Didn't have you had to have a meal ticket a half a dozen different places. By the time payday come, you didn't have nothing on those meal tickets. So I took off one day and I went, got a job up in Milwaukee on a Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul. And then, like it was in the West, there's a lot more pay up there. And then on the 18th of June, 1912, I went to get on a cut of car, and the stirrup broke off of it and fell under, run over my left foot and ankle. So that done me for the railroad.
You mean your right foot?
Right foot, yes.
This was in 1912.
1912.
And you were working for the Milwaukee and
Chicago, Milwaukee, and St. Paul. Well, I was in the hospital up there for...
Was your family still in Wabash?
Yes, we were still in Wabash. And I don't know how long I was in the hospital. It was a month, 6 weeks, something like that. And they let me go home. And they said it was going to be all right. The doctor patched up that foot, you know, and that's when I come home, and I had to get shoes bigger size than I tell you about was, what's we call it?
Carl
Schwab. And no, it never healed. Just a one little spot there. Just, it wasn't much bigger than a match head.
Mm-hmm.
It would just come out and break up and then seep, and never get that kind of healed over. And then the first thing you know is out, and then finally I come home. I got a job. First job I had, though, after I got this foot taken off and he could get around, old Sam Bullby gave me a job working for him, and he had a button factory, cutting buttons down there on South Wabash Street. I suppose you was here then. But
I wasn't even on Earth then.
Right.
that was Sam. He took these mussel shells, you know, from the river, and cut buttons out of them.
By this time, your foot was off, or your leg was off?
Foot was off, and I'd got my artificial leg.
Had the railroad compensated you or anything?
Just to a certain extent. I settled with them before I lost the foot, before the foot came off.
Uh-huh.
That's where I lost money.
Had you known later what was going to happen?
Yeah.
Well, Mom got a little more out of them just for writing the letter. They knew they'd screwed him.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you who worked at the button factory, and I just interviewed him the other day, is Howard Smith.
I heard that worked there when Howard worked there.
Yes. And that was good money at the
You
button
mean
factory.
Oh.
Howard Smith on West Hill?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he worked down there same time I did.
That was good money, he said.
Oh, yes. You know, when I first went there, of course, I didn't know anything about it, never saw one before. And Sam said, now you can work an hour and go sit down and rest a while, or whatever you want to do. It's all piecework. So, went along there, and first payday I got, I think it was $3 for working all week. Sam says, you're getting better all the time. You're getting better. He said, you cut a nice bunch of buttons. He said, just so you get...
$2.40.
Well, when I quit there, I was making $18 a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back over to the Cardinal Company, or the Cabinet Company then, and went back there, and I got $3 a day there. That is all. I was working piecework, but they let you make $3.
What did you do there?
I was in the finishing room, polishing.
Was your leg still bothering you?
Oh, I was wearing artificial legs then, but it bothered me. I've had work with blisters that big around my mouth. First leg I got didn't fit me. I suffered.
Where'd you go from the Cardinal then?
Well, that is the Wabash Cabinet Company.
Wabash Cabinet.
Then I come and went to work over and worked at the Cardinal. We, in this time, we had bought a little place out on the Yankee Road, a 2-acre patch out there, and lived out there till 1919. And we lived right across, it was right down here on the corner of Vernon and Chestnut Street, right across from that cabinet, that factory there, the Cardinal was then.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife, she says, oh, we can buy that place there. She says, I can have some boulders and make some money that way. So that's what we done. And she worked like a horse down there. And, but we got along all right, I guess.
We moved out there before 1919 because we were out there when the 1913 flood was on.
Out on the Yankee Road?
Yeah.
Yes, we was out there, but I said we moved up there in 1919.
You mean up here on the corner?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought the way you talked you meant we moved to the country.
Then you took in boarders.
Yeah,
Yeah.
had dinner meals, you know.
That was right close to the woodworking factory.
You had to
Yeah.
cross the street there, kind of across.
Was W.C. Mills? He should have been living right there at that time, around that area there.
He lived over on Adams Street, I think. Then.
Oh, Cecil?
Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't he live on Adams?
I lived on Adams
Right
Street
down
or
here.
something.
Well, what happened after this Cardinal experience? And
Well, then I went
And Roy
back.
Johnson Kellogg's had cornflakes.
Well, didn't nobody ever refuse me a job, and I was to go back and go to work for him again.
uh-huh.
I went to work for Honeywell a while,
Uh-huh.
and then
Where were they located then?
up there on Canal Street,
The old flour mill?
And where the,
east of that.
where the 1 hour cleaner is.
Corner Canal in Miami.
Yeah. And then I worked there a while, and a fellow that worked at down there at the Wabash Filing Supplies, he was going to quit, and he wanted me to take his job. So I didn't know anything about it, and finally the old man that run the place, Mr. What was his name?
Robinson.
Robinson. He called me and wanted to know if I'd take that. So I went down there, and he taught me what he knew about the job, all piecework. And that I worked there till
What did you do at Wabash Filing Supply?
I done the celluloid work, made those celluloid tabs on the filing cards, you know. I put those on there, put the celluloid in there. I had a machine for that.
Well, then you retired from, what age were you when you retired?
65.
65. Well, what have you done since your retirement then?
I painted mostly. I worked for Orange Connect, and then before I went with him, I went with that Miller and Alexander, wasn't it?
Joe Miller and Darwin Alexander? Or Raymond?
Raymond.
Well, for a man with one leg, you sure took up some pretty hazardous occupations, didn't you?
Well, that didn't, a lot of people wondered how I had done that. I remember one time I was with Connect, and we was painting at the church up at Methodist church up in La Grove.
Uh-huh.
And they had a big tall scaffold up in the middle of that church, and I was painting the ceiling of that church up there. And the minister came in one day, and after he come down at noon to eat, I was sitting on the step outside there eating my dinner. Out of a bucket, the minister come over to me and says, "How's it come that you crippled up the way you are? They put you up on that high place there?" I said, "What's the matter with that?" He said, "Just like walking on the floor down here." He said, "It didn't look to me like it." I said, "The only trouble I had was climbing up there. I had to climb up the end of the ladder, kind of a half put a ladder on the end of it to get up to the top, and then when you get up there, there's a railing up there, just like working on the floor." But he thought it was awful to send me up there.
Let me ask you, anything else that you want to add to your career? Florence, is there anything you think that he's left out? We're going to go back a bit here. I'm going to ask you what your reaction to some things are. How about the Depression of 1929?
Well, let's see, that was during Roosevelt's.
No, that was before Roosevelt. Roosevelt didn't go in until 1932. 29, 30, 31.
Well, I didn't make very much money. I was still working there at the cabinet company during that time. But they cut us down till I was...
You had WPA.
Did you work on WPA?
No, sir, I did not.
My brother did though. Oh boy, this fellow Barnes is his name, and he drove a streetcar. I'll never forget. And Charlie just he got a job with this on a WPA, and they had to have boots and shovels, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to work, and this Barnes found out he got these boots and things and had bought them from him, you know. And he fired him.
Fired.
After
Would
he
you-
spent that money, you know, and it was just poor as church mice.
Would you?
And it was Democratic. See.
Yeah.
It sure made a staunch Republican.
Would you, Harry? Would you say through the years you've been leaned more toward Democrat or Republican in politics?
Well, it's more Republican, but I've voted both ways.
Yeah. But you haven't been a straight party man down
No,
for the years.
no, I never. I always voted for the one I thought was the best man. I voted for Roosevelt when he went in there,
Mhm.
and I was also sorry I voted for him after it was over with.
Yeah. How about?
Because he took his pension away, isn't that the
Roosevelt
reason?
took my pension away from me.
How about prohibition?
No, I never had anything to do with that.
Yeah.
I never voted for pro-I ticket any time, because I like a little snort, used
Yeah.
to.
Do you remember the days of prohibition around here in Wabash?
Yes,
Had
I
to go
can
to the
remember.
blind pigs, and
Yeah, I lost my first automobile during that time.
how was that?
Well, I was in a nervous condition some way. I don't know what caused it, but I was.
Well, from your letter. Why don't you know?
And I went over to the Eagle Theater building. There was a Dr. No, it wasn't Warrington, a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up there for treatment, and I just had a new, it was about maybe a year old, Ford touring car. Parked down there on the other side of the telephone office at that time, the other side of the Eagle building. Come out and was gone. That was my experience with prohibition and hard
I
times.
was going to show him. That's what you did over there if you wanted to show him.
These are the tabs and the cards that you made.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I see. I wonder if they still make these.
Oh, yeah.
Do they? Yeah, they still make that type.
And then on the folders, you know, for file folders and that stuff.
Was that glued on?
No, it was put on the heat and we used the light.
The names of the fellows that had been in his company, they'd never had a reunion, and he organized a reunion, and they met. They had a state Spanish War convention. convention in
Tails.
Terre Haute, and we went down there to that, and it was where they had their first. And the next year, they came to our house. The most thrilling thing I ever experienced.
What year would that have been, Harry, that you had the Spanish-American War veterans?
Reunion, the first one was, let's see, in 1927, we had a
tents in the backyard
national
and everything, you know, those films,
convention
and
in Detroit, and I went up there, and I met a fellow up there, and he asked me, he was from some other outfit, and he asked me if we'd ever had met any of the old buddy. No, I said one or two of them, but says, you know, where a lot, I said only about one or two that I know anything of now. Well, he says, why don't you write to your congressman and get the address and have a reunion? I thought that'd be a wise idea. So I come home, after I come home from that convention in Detroit, Albert Hall was the congressman from this district at the time, and lived over in Marion. So I wrote him a letter and asked him if he could do that. So he said, I got a letter from him, he said, I'll try. And I sent him a bunch of names. I knew I could remember putting it all the names, you know, and that time, I don't suppose I could now. But he come back with a letter and says, I took this up with the department, whatever it was, Department of Interior, I believe Benson was under that time. And he says, in place of picking out these few, says this man said, well, why not take all the Spanish War veterans that served in that outfit during that time? And I said, that's better still. So he come back and he had a sheet of, I don't know, how many, do you remember how many?
I don't know, but I
She
typed up the letters for him.
we made a form letter and sent all them out.
What year was this?
1928.
1928.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had them all come to Wabash.
In
The
29. That is
29.
We lived down there on the corner, and the men slept, most of them slept in the yard and pup tents.
we got tents from the Cecil Mills.
Really, it was a real thrilling experience. And they just like kids, you know.
These men would have been in their late 40s or early 50s by this
Yeah,
time.
and I remember that day when we went to Terre Haute, and Dad didn't sleep, or he hadn't been well, and I tell you, he got well overnight going down there. And he was sitting down there in the hotel lobby, and some man came down the stairs, and he said, "Hi, Osty," he says, "I know you, you have big brown eyes, and they just like kids."
Mhm.
It was really thrilling. Hadn't seen any of them since they left them.
What was the last contact or reunion that you had?
That was in 30, I guess. We went to Elder Reunion over in Springfield, Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when the panic come along, and they couldn't any of them go at the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So it broke ranks again. But I've
So
kept...
most of them are gone now.
Do you hear from anyone looking for some background or history of this period at all?
No, I've never heard anybody written up for anything like that.
Hey, how about the Ku Klux Klan?
Oh, I was a member at one
Yeah.
time. They worked me into it like a fool. They had me into it before I knew it.
How did this come about?
Well, there was a fellow that worked in a drugstore down here on the corner. And he was talking to me one day about said they had an organization that was working in politics, you know, to figure out if these candidates come up, they'll investigate them and give you the idea who's the best candidate.
Uh-huh.
So I thought that was a good idea. And he took me up there, and they got, I forget where he took me to someplace over town. Went up there, and first thing you know, I belonged to Ku Klux Klan.
Was this in the upstairs on Market Street, in the building? Or?
It was in there someplace. I don't know. I won't say just exactly where they had their office then.
Uh-huh.
And
George Biggerstaff was one of the big high moguls at that time, you he was a state, I think.
Yeah, he is.
Did you pay your own dues?
Yeah, after I never paid but one set of dues. I remember that after I found out the Ku Klux Klan. I never paid any more dues because I didn't want any part of it.
You never went back?
No, I went to a couple of their meetings and found out some of the things that I didn't like, and I never went anymore.
Did you remember during this period of time the initiation that they had out at the airfield on North Cass Street, or a big parade, or any of the...
Oh, yes, I went to 2 or 3 of the parades, and then they had one out there. They had one out, one gathering at the park.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had another out there in that, where the sail barn was out
Yeah,
there someplace.
that's right. It's the name that seems to come up for quite frequently, riding a black horse with his sheet and hood and everything, is the name of Jess Price. Does that name ring a bell with you?
He had a tire shop downtown,
Did he?
and he had,
I'll bet that tire shop was on Market Street, probably.
yeah, it was,
I get the connection now.
yeah.
I don't remember him
He was
wearing
kind of redheaded, I can just see him.
Anything else you remember of that period? This is your chance to get even with history right now. Do you remember when the first automobile, you remember seeing your first
I
automobile?
remember the first automobile. I was in Tampa, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And there was on a furlough or a vacation over there, and I was walking down the street, and there was a darndest looking outfit sitting up there at the curb. I stopped and looked at it, and it looked like an old sleigh. With that curb body dash came up over there, and I was talking to the fellow with me, and I said, "What's that? That what do you suppose that is?" He said, "I don't know what it is." We sat there and watched a little while, and pretty soon some fella come up and he reached under the seat and he got a crank out of there and he shoved it in under the seat on the side and went on out on the side, and he must have wound that up, and pretty soon it started. I think it was only a one cylinder, chug, 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 chug. And there was an old Oldsmobile, is what he talked to us and after he got it started and said it was an Oldsmobile.
Do you remember the first airplane that you saw?
No, I don't remember that.
How about the first time on telephone?
Well, the first telephone I had was when I was working in that stone quarry down there in Westport.
Uh-huh.
Had one of them old ones, you ring on the side, and then you have to go to the central, and they'd tell them who you wanted, and they'd get it for you that way.
How about radio? Do you remember when the radios came in?
Yes, I can remember them. I know our kids.
Like
were-
this.
Uh-huh. I got you. You still have one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Yeah. Hang on to that.
Name it, I got.
Yeah.
What was that, Florence?
The old telephone, the old crank telephone.
Oh, yeah.
How about the first radio?
Yeah, I remember now. They had, the kids got a hold of they had earphones, and then they had just a piece of wire they would run along the side of it. What did they call that? You remember what they called that? Weren't that there? Little on the radio? What is it? Oh, what would they call
You're thinking
it?
of crystal set? Or?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Right.
But these kids would sit up there upstairs and I'd play with that thing hours at a time, trying to. Oh, there comes one. There comes one. Did each one take a listen at it and.
I remember when they first got there. Can't you? Of course,
Yeah, I can't remember.
You go to the neighbors and stuff, and you know, all the neighbors together.
Can you think of anything that we might have missed that you'd like to talk about? Or has it been a happy life?
I've had a very nice life. Of course, I lost my wife and I lost 2 sons.
Mm-hmm.
I lost one of the twins. He got killed was working on the police force here.
Mhm.
Some fella shot him, and he's running loose now. He got out of the penitentiary. He got a life sentence. He's out running around someplace. And then my oldest son was killed in an automobile accident up there around close to South Bend. Bourbon, wasn't it? Bremen.
Just when she's left and like
You've had pretty good health other than the fact that you had leg.
Yes, I've been in pretty good shape. I don't think I've had no serious. In 59 and 60, I was in the hospital a couple of times with kidney infection. But otherwise, I've been in pretty good shape.
Here we are, 92 years old, and you smoked all your life?
Ever since about 16 years
Well,
old.
you're living proof right there that tobacco never killed you.
And that's what Dr. Robert told him.
Yeah.
You know, and he said, you live this long and it hadn't done
Why,
more
it
to
won't
you
bother you
than
now,
that.
that's for sure.
No use quitting now.
I get a little coughing spell once in a while, and I think maybe that's because of it.
I think you're in remarkably good health, and you look good. And
Thank you.
you could pass for a man about 30 years younger, really.
You know, the thing is, he just doesn't get around, but that's due to the fact that.
You still eat good and everything.
Yes, I don't eat like I used to because I don't need it. Florence takes good care of me in the way of food. I haven't got a bit of kick on that. All I want is eat more than she does.
Hey, I noticed the artwork on your hand. Is that a carryover from your Army days?
Yes, and one of the prisoners in that old fort down there.
He did that?
Yeah, and I got some on my arm. I don't know whether I can get this darn sleeve unbuttoned.
He did that too? Didn't charge
Yeah.
you for it?
No, I'd give him a little tobacco.
Yeah.
Give him
One of the Army prisoners did it?
yeah, in the old Fort Marion there.
Yeah. Did he have a regular outfit? Or
No, just something made.
just something he made? Lucky thing he didn't kill
His
you.
arm.
Oh,
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Lucky thing he didn't kill you back in those days.
Boy, he had everybody in that prison marked for some kind.
Yeah.
He done some nice work. He done some beautiful work.
He did everything in blue though.
I couldn't imagine.
No, he had colors,
Did he?
red. And,
did he put on the needle? That's all he
yeah,
But he didn't have an electric needle.
no, it was all one he made himself. He'd had a little stick with about, I think he had about 4 or 5 needles right in a row and fixed him there. Cussing shirts and
He didn't charge you for this work?
oh no, it's all gratis. It just if you'd get him a packet of tobacco, bull dam or something like that, and a packet of cigarette paper, and they was happy.
Hey, you don't have to open your shirt.
I started this now. I'm gonna whip it.
I can open it.
Isn't that beautiful?
Well, what was that supposed to be?
See? You read it?
That's it. What is that?
In memory of Mother.
Yeah.
And she,
I see. That was done in 2 colors. Isn't it?
see the
Okay.
flowers.
Flowers,
red,
yeah.
And then there, that one.
Mm-hmm. I'll be darned.
He done some beautiful work. This fellow did. He was could make all. He didn't get this one finished though. Now there's supposed to be come out of here a weeping willow tree.
Mm-hmm.
Come up there.
Yeah.
Who was this man who saluted to killed your son?
Mosey Harold.
I did Zeno Malot's biography. He was in the car with your son.
Yeah.
He was
Told me all the details.
He was driving the
Right.
car.
I bet you remember that, vividly.
I went over there that I answered the phone right there in the car. And then I took Mom and I went over to the police station and we got over there. They said he was gone.
How long has your father made your home with you, or you with your
Oh,
father?
well, I've lived at home or with David, we lived together for a long time. And Jay was just a little at that time. And so Dad stayed with Jay, and Mom and I went to him. It was a blizzard that night. Oh boy, it was bad.
Well, it was 19th of December, no, January,
It was after Christmas.
43.
Yeah. Do you have many visitors now at your age, Harry?
No, not many people come see me. I don't know whether they don't
You've
like
had
me
3 this
anymore.
afternoon.
Well, that's fine.
Well, you know, Dad was never one to go, and I said he can't expect people to, and people are so busy they don't have time. You know.
I used to, when I lived over town, when I went downtown to Legion, putting it every
Not
day.
really, I'm so busy during
And
the day.
I used to
Christmas.
help them
I
cook down
never,
there
you know, like
when they
a
put
lot
on
of
the
visitors and I
feed.
talk to
feeds,
them.
and work in the
Then when I get home at
kitchen.
night, I want to stay home.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't tell you that when I was transferred to hospital corps. That's all I done in the hospital corps. I cooked.
At Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, that doesn't happen.
Do you draw a Spanish War pension for that period from the
Yeah.
government? Yeah.
Mhm.
That's what he said, Roosevelt took it away from him.
That was in 32 or 33 that they took it away, and then they restored it, what, in 36?
Later, about a little over a year, I think it was gone. I know. I thought about that. The only ones that ever took the pensions away was Democrats. You go over to Cleveland, took it away from the Civil War veterans. You know.
Do you remember the Civil War veterans when you were a kid?
Yes, I can remember. Sure. My dad and I remember once we went to Greensburg. What they used to have, what they called sham battles, and I thought that was one of the grandest things I ever saw. Them old soldiers in their uniforms and had their muskets and fighting, and they carrying them away, and
These were all Civil War veterans.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll be darned.
Oh, there were a lot of them there at that time. When I was a little boy, you know. My sister, older sister, she was born, I think, well, she was born in 63, so you see, the war is still going on then, wasn't it? Yeah. It ended, or did
65.
65, yeah.
65. All your brothers and sisters gone now?